Some people call maple syrup liquid gold, and they think that putting it on pancakes and waffles is an idea that's pure gold. Well, at Miles Franklin, we think a pure gold idea is taking real liquid gold and turning it into real solid gold Canadian maple leaf coins. That's why right now, for a limited time, we're offering the Purest Gold Canadian Maple Leaf coins at just $105 US over spot. That's 4 nines of the purest gold there is in a pretty maple leaf design. And at only $105 US over spot, we'd say that's an idea that's pure gold.
Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us this Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Andy, thanks for coming back on.
Always look forward to Tuesdays with you, DUNAGUN. It's like Tuesdays with Maury. Wasn't that the name of the book? One of my
Maybe this will be famous someday too. Thanks
Absolutely.
all the way, all our viewers out there for watching and spreading the word, because many of the people who call me say that they found out about our show, found out about me, found out about our channel because they're groupies of you, Andy Schectman. They follow you around where you're being interviewed because they like the insight, the down-to-earth style you bring and everything. So speaking of which, we'd like your down-to-earth update on what's going on as a weekly update on the markets, the metals markets. We still are kind of collecting our collective breath here after the Reddit squeeze at the end of January and the fallout that's come from that, and watching to see what's next. So if you could give us an update from inside the supply chain. There's certainly also been a lot of chatter, we'll touch on that briefly, on whether there's actually an acute physical silver shortage at major places like COMEX, LBMA, and the Perth Mint, among others. But first, if we could just start with a supply chain health check on how are things going in the precious metal supply chain from your seat?
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that other stuff, but the supply chain is tenuous at best. It's serviceable. We are able to keep the wheels in motion, but like I said last week, we have to purchase things as much as 90 days in advance, pay up front in total, pay high premiums, and cross our fingers that all goes well. And to this point, all has gone well. But really, it's interesting because the Perth Mint and the Royal Mint out of the UK have been two of the best performing centers for us on a wholesale basis. And that's the epicenter of all the controversy, really. So it leaves me somewhat befuddled. First and foremost, there's no secondary market buybacks at all. No one is selling anything to us virtually at all. The only type of gold we're taking in is when people are trading it to silver. So we get a little bit in, but when you're seeing $100, $200 premiums nearly on gold eagles and buffaloes, when you're seeing silver eagles trading between $8 and $10 over the price of silver wherever you're looking, that's emblematic of just how difficult it is to get stuff out of the United States Mint, and shows no sign of abating. The Royal Canadian Mint has loosened up a little bit, but here again, no 2021 gold maples. Very difficult to come by. There are some that we had placed orders a few months ago, but certainly nothing normal. And when you're looking back over the last several years, you look at the first quarter of any year, and that's normally when the suppliers are drowning in current issue product. Now it's as rare as hen's teeth here in North America, at least in terms of American Eagles and Canadian Maple Leafs. The 2021s are not only very expensive if you can find them, but scarce, which is really unusual. Put that together with no secondary market action. Just about everything that we are getting is coming from across the Atlantic Ocean. And it's been okay so far, but from all the reports that you mentioned that we can talk about, and just the feeling of what's going on, and the fact that we have to buy stuff 3 months in advance at the highest premiums we've ever bought them at, tells me we're not very far off from this getting much worse and much more difficult. And again, a lot of it has to do with the expansion of interest by the mainstream, by people who, maybe it's the Reddit community, maybe it's the awakening of cryptocurrencies going to the moon, just the fragility of the dollar, and people are waking up to it. So whatever it is, I'll tell you that the demand in this industry is even greater than it was in 2020, which I would have thought was impossible. And you put that together with a tenuous, fragile supply chain that is just getting by. It doesn't bode well, I think, for if anything were to get any hairier or attract more mainstream attention. It will be a problem. And at this point right now, for a lot of companies, it is. For us, we've fortunately been able to stay ahead of it. We still have decent product selection, but every single day I'm wondering where we're going to get our next batch of product from. And bottom line is you have to pay more. You have to buy it way earlier. You got to pay way in advance, and you have to have trust that when you send millions of dollars across the Atlantic Ocean to a government-issued mint where rumors are swirling that they're not meeting demand and canceling orders, it's a little harrowing. And but that's kind of been what you had to do, really, since December or January of 2020, just to stay ahead of all this craziness.
Yeah, you were kind of a pioneer recently in that decision strategically to move forward with making those risk buys out in front of the demand wave. I have some concerns about that. If you could, it seems to me like back in the beginning of the COVID crunch in March timeframe, say, of 2020, where we, instead of being able to sell things that were in stock on the shelf, okay, the shelves got cleared off, so now we're selling from these inbound committed shipments, and then pretty soon, it's kind of like you're borrowing from tomorrow of your inventory to be able to meet current demand today. So it seems like if the pressure of the supply, the pressure of the demand doesn't relent, or in fact even expands, and now you've already pulled forward that inventory from weeks or months into the future, then what are we gonna do a few months from now? And like you're saying, you're at the wholesale level, you're doing the same thing. You're pulling forward from inventory that these wholesalers are able to, or the mints themselves are able to provide months out. Heaven help us when we get 3 months down the road, if interest continues to expand and grow as it has been, we see new buyers coming in. So how does that resolve itself? You asked me just before this interview, will premiums go back to normal? And I was just silent because I have no idea. I don't see any end in sight of that imbalance.
Yeah, well, I mean, as an example, and that's really a good way of saying it. And it's important to understand that, I talk about this and I'll get one or two comments saying he's pumping the metals market. No, I'm really not. I mean, it is what it is. There's a guy who was on your show, John Adams, who's been talking a lot about this lately. He emailed me several times, a lot lately, about what's happening at the Perth Mint. And, I mean, the UK Mint, which has been really good to us, all sorts of chatter coming out of there too. But I'll tell you, they'll tell me that I have 30,000 Britannias coming in 2 weeks. I don't get them for 4 weeks. The mints are in disarray, period. The amount of demand is blowing up. One phrase, recency bias. If you're running a mint or a refinery before 2020, you had no reason to, crank up supply so much. And by the time that it became realized, the world has changed so much that it thwarted, I think, the ability to really get in front of this if you are a sovereign government mint. And when do you stop? When do you think it's too much? There's a lot involved here. And the bottom line is that over the last decade, a very small minority of people have even desired precious metals. And so the centers of supply have not needed to reevaluate their business model, but it's getting reevaluated for them on the fly because the demand is unrelenting and it's growing. And I think there's a segment of people who are realizing that currencies in general are frail and that markets are disassociated from the economy. And when people see a markets at all-time highs in an economy that looks eviscerated to the eye, at what point do you take a step back and say, yeah, maybe I need to add a little insurance? And with more and more people talking about it, with the Reddit group, with an expansion of people like you the alternative media, even fighting, censorship. There's still the word's getting out there, and I think a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin over 50,000. I mean, there's greed involved. People, geez, I wish I would have bought it. But there's also the realization that what does that mean when you see cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, all sorts of them, really accentuating in value and expanding in value. I think if you take a step back and think about that, that means that, it makes you think about the value of the currency, the value of what we call money. Is Bitcoin going to the moon? Is the Dow Jones going to the moon, or is the currency losing value? And that's really the question. Whatever the answer is, people are pondering it. And I think more and more people are looking to gold and silver. And I think also when you talk especially about silver, it's one of the few things that offer value in a world where everything is at all-time values, whether it's justified or not. So, look, I think that more people are looking to this, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. And the question is, can the mints keep up? When you talk about the amount of demand that's out there and growing, and the industrial side of things, especially with silver, I don't know if they can, if they want to, or they'll have the ability to. And when you talk about silver in particular, it just is one of these deals where one of these days it just won't be able to get supplied, because so much of it is being used right now in industry, and that's expanding, and yet the supply is decreasing. It is truly decreasing, and is harder and harder to find it in nature, and there are more and more expansive uses for it. And I think people are realizing, hey, not just the industrial side. I guess what's really got me encouraged is a monetary side that is growing in understanding and realization from a group of people I never thought would have any interest in it. And that's the millennials, thanks to the Reddit phenomenon. And whether it started with GameStop and moved over to silver is irrelevant. The bottom line is people are awake to it, and it's growing. And because of that, even 1% of the people would be a doubling from where it's been. And so it's continuing to grow, and we get 2% allocation. That's fourfold from where it was in 2019 in terms of demand. Demand is growing, interest is growing, realization is growing. And I also think that, people are realizing that there are very few things left out there any longer where you can put your money that offer you safety and growth. I can't think of any besides silver, honestly. Gold, too, to a lesser extent. But when I take an objective stance back, I look at silver as the buying opportunity of a generation for many, many reasons. And it's depleted in nature. It has massive use cases that are expanding and growing. It's being accumulated by the wealthiest people in the world, and it's undervalued. It's half of its 1980 double peak high of $50. So in every respect. And then, of course, you have the money creation and the capped nominal rates. So in every respect, I think it's taking on relevance, and people are waking up to it, and that's changing things.
When you mentioned, are we past peak silver, that there's this growing gap between, there's already a deficit. You mentioned some huge number,
300 million.
300 million ounces in the last year, a deficit of production versus demand for silver, both from industrial and financial investment. We had Keith Neumeyer and Rick Rule on about a week and a half ago talking about, and they said there's a massive metal shortage coming because it's silver's probably the poster child of this, but there are others, coppers and other. He mentioned Keith Neumeyer was just saying that the green new era of new electric vehicles, all that sort of thing, electrification of everything, requires copious amounts of several metals, among them silver premier, and yet over the last decade, there's just been languishing of exploration, development, production, all kinds of things. So everything you've been mentioning is likely to get much worse for the next period of years before it gets better. If we could turn our attentions just briefly to that specific discussion of whether there's a critical physical shortage of silver on the exchanges and at some of the key unallocated accounts. I know we dedicated a lot of our talk last week to that, and I don't want to examine that. There's an emerging information that's coming out about that. John Adams is actually going to be on with me later tonight, which we'll publish later this week. And there's been some new revelations and some claims made by some of the major exchanges or mints that they say they have plenty of metals, it's just not in the right form or whatever, so it's going to take some time. You've mentioned in the past that it's difficult from the outside to necessarily know how much of what's being claimed as actually available is there if there isn't this ability to deliver. Certainly it's something we've experienced at the retail level, but evidently that's also being claimed to be going on at the major level as well. What insight can you offer as far as what we do know about the actual physical availability or physical shortage of metals on either the exchanges or some of these major holders, like, for example, the Perth Mint, among others?
Well, in the case of the Perth Mint and maybe the UK Mint, it just seems to me that they are sidestepping their local public demand, the little guy coming in to buy a few ounces, in favor of their big North American wholesale business like us. That's really what it seems like to me, because there is an overpreponderance amount of claims, and I keep seeing them over and over and over and over again. People saying that they are going to the Perth and try to buy as little as 2 kilos of silver, which is 75 ounces roughly, or 65 ounces rather, and they don't have it, they can't get it, and a lot of it centers around their allocated, unallocated accounts. Most of the people who own Perth Mint certificates, at least in North America, own them on an unallocated basis, and that's free storage. And as we talked about last week, nothing is free. Nothing is for free. And I've run a storage program with Brinks for a decade, and nothing is for free. What that means to me is less uncertainty about whether or not the Perth Mint is obligated to deliver it. I believe they are, and they will. That's not the point. The point is that when the rubber meets the road and you decide, well, I have this certificate and I own silver and I want it. Well, what I am being told over and over and over again, and again today on several emails, including one from John Adams, where people have unallocated accounts. And mind you, in 31 years, I've met only two people who own allocated accounts here in North America at Perth Mint, because their storage has always been very expensive. It's like 1%. And that's expensive in the storage business. And where most of it, you're paying fractions of that. Most companies you are. And so people are saying they have gone to try to go to allocated or to take possession. And the first step of the process, whether it be take possession or move to allocated, is fabrication. So you have to take your unallocated account, wherever it is, in whatever form it is. It's a liability on the balance sheet of the Perth, but we don't know exactly what it's stored in, or I don't know what it's held in, if it's just a record keeping or it's actually some piece of gold or silver in the facility somewhere in some form. But the bottom line is, in order to allocate it, you have to fabricate it. And that process, the claims are, they're taking months, 3, 4, 5 months to get this done, 6 months. This is the same thing that Shay Russell and I talked about a year ago. Shay runs one of the publications for Agora in Australia. Awesome gal, and she's had me on her show a few times. And last year, right around the time that there was that big disparity between physical and London spot, and the COMEX was running into problems, the Perth Mint sent a whole bunch of kilo bars to the COMEX in an effort to help ease that strain. But at the same time, Shay was saying the same thing. No one could get gold coins, kangaroos, or bars at the Perth Mint, and that in order to fabricate, it was a 6-month minimum wait. Now, this is what she told me publicly on one of our interviews. So this has been going on for 2 years now, which just leads me to 2 points. One, if you're going to trust anyone, even someone as honorable of an institution, 100-plus-year-old institution like the Perth Mint, which I do believe is honorable, always has proven to be to me. But if you're going to trust them to hold your stuff, don't be penny wise and pound foolish, in the respect that if they're going to not charge you to store your metal, well, then arguably you deserve to be at the back of the line when it comes time for fabrication, because the people who are coming to pay up front or want it allocated and fabricated up front should be in front of you. And you shouldn't get to go to the front of the line ahead of people who have already paid their money and are waiting. because you chose to be penny wise and pound foolish. Now, I'm not speaking negatively about the Perth Mint. I'm just speaking negatively about unallocated anything in this universe. You want allocated in your name so these types of problems don't arise. In normal times, the Perth Mint wouldn't take that long to do this. They may take a week or two. But in times like this, when we see such an expansion of interest, what do you expect? It's like, everyone is lining up to the trough to drink. And what do you, just because, you've been over there and been associated with, that group forever, doesn't mean you get to bud in line when everyone's thirsty. And that's what's happening here. You got to go to the back of the line and wait your turn. And that is what's disconcerting, because a lot can happen while you're waiting your turn. And that's really where the problems are arising. Now, I've seen over a dozen emails to me specifically, people echoing exactly what I'm saying, that, I've tried to allocate or take possession of my unallocated account and was told it would be months, or it's just not available right now. So I will say one other thing. The CEO of the Perth Mint did an interview last night on ABC radio in Australia. I listened to it, and it was less than comforting to me what his comments were. And I would ask anyone, rather than me expand upon that, I would ask anyone to listen to it for themselves and see what they think. The biggest issue to me, without getting too deep into expanding on it at all, would be when pushed on it by the radio commentator in Australia. Basically, he said, well, there's a 10-day period where we have to figure out shipping. But he didn't say anything about the waiting period for the metal itself. He really danced around it, sidestepped around it, and it didn't inspire a tremendous amount of confidence. But again, like I said last week, they have been the savior to Miles Franklin and to a lot of North America business over the last 2 years. So whatever they're doing back there regarding allocated, unallocated, or local walk-in off the street Australian business, they have certainly done a good job with wholesale business in North America. Does what we see here back there, does that portray for difficult times ahead for North American wholesale business? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But I will say my compliment goes to them for helping all the people here in the United States have a lot of opportunity to get gold and silver. They've been great at it. But I will tell you what's going on over there. There's a tremendous amount of smoke. Is there fire? Don't know. But a lot of billowing smoke, people talking about this, and they are denying it. In fact, if you go to the Perth Mint website in bright red, there's a thing that says there is no shortage of gold or silver at the Perth Mint. So they're claiming there's not. People are claiming there are. I can tell you on this side of the table, they've been great. But what does it mean when no one in Australia can get product from their own national mint, supposedly, or people trying to fabricate are told 6 months? Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Well, all right. Now back one more question before we get into a weekly special. I know we need to keep it tight on these weekly market updates. So I just wanted to, one thing that occurs to me, and this is something that I didn't expect when I became a licensed bullion dealer with Miles Franklin. I didn't think I'd be observing so much human psychology. It feels like I keep meeting lots of people. I expected that, talking to them about their life situations and their goals. I expected that. But this phenomenon that Rick Rule has talked about multiple times about people focusing on recent price action rather than on underlying value. I have a new client I was working with today who is really interested in making a significant purchase of American Gold Eagles. I was surprised and pleased to find out that we actually have them in stock at the moment. It's been months that we didn't. And so I said, hey, this is really a good thing. And then I also said, hey, look, the spot price is down $30 today from yesterday. That means you can get them cheaper, because we were talking the day before as well. But that, I think, might have rattled him. Oh, no, it went down. I got to think about it now. I thought, what? So this is the difference, because I have some clients who are habitual purchasers, and my phone will ring on market down days. I know it's going to be that individual calling to snag a few more ounces on sale, so to speak. But here, someone who's new to it thought, oh no, if something can go down, then I don't want something that can go down. I'll wait till it's clearly, an establishing an uptrend, and then I'll know, oh, I'm buying something that goes up, not something that goes down. And I just thought, wow, Rick was right. And I am fascinated with our psychology of thinking about whether something is worthy of holding on to based on what the price did in the past 24 hours, rather than what it represents to have that versus to not have that. And what you were just saying a few minutes ago about when it becomes clear to most people that that's the thing to have, then the availability immediately evaporates. It's just that's when it becomes.
Well, that in of itself is the little man rule that I've talked about so many times. And as a caveat, Rick Rule is as smart as they get. He's been in this industry about as long as you and I combined, and he's just a plethora of knowledge and quite a orator as well. But when you look at that, that's why so few people succeed in investing. You're supposed to buy when things are on sale. You're supposed to buy low, not buy high. You're supposed to buy on the dips and not chase the rallies. The human nature psychology of things really is, that's the whole concept of wave theory and Elliott wave. It's all about human emotions that drive the markets. And I believe it. I've seen it that way too, but it's the greater understanding that has kept me sane. I mean, if you've been in this market long enough and dealing with the manipulated market the way that we have, you have to have a big picture understanding, a macro perspective understanding of what's happening, or you'll lose your mind, because so many of the moves are counterintuitive. But I will just, go back to February 1st when, at the time, you couldn't. All the companies were closing, including us, for the first time in 31 years, because there was so much demand over the weekend. When more gold and silver were going into the ETFs than ever before. When the entire world was talking about gold and silver, the price of silver was up to $30, and then some genius dumps 2 years worth of global mine supply in the thinly traded access market before New York Open, after London closed. That is 100% specifically designed to freak people out. It is not designed to maximize return on investment. In fact, it's the opposite of that. That person would be fired every single time if it weren't orchestrated. That person would be prosecuted. You're guaranteed to offer the worst possible execution for that trade and to freak everyone out. And all of these people that are freaked out are the people who just woke up to gold and silver. And so, you get a lot of people say, I'm not nuts to that stuff. I'll go back to what I was doing. That's what I mean by taking a step back and seeing the big picture. No one in their right mind would do that unless they were trying to knock people off the trail. The fundamentals and the acquisition by the biggest money in the world is all you need to see. Look what the big money is doing. Look at the amount of silver deliveries this month off of COMEX, off of the London Metals Exchange, off of the ETFs, off the Shanghai Gold Exchange. They're all delivering metal in copious amounts to the wealthiest people in the world. And that's what you need to see. And that's why I always say price is a tool of misdirection. That is how they misdirect the public. They use paper futures contracts to create a perception of reality that allows them to misdirect the public into Bitcoin and into, whether it's justified or not, mind you, and into the Dow stocks and every other investment besides the hard assets that I believe they are accumulating in preparation for the reset, for what comes next. They're certainly doing it by their actions when you see the amount of deliveries over the last year and a half, and it shows no sign of abating. So you're right. It's a thing where hand-holding is important, but people need to remember when the price drops and if the fundamentals haven't changed one bit, in fact, are growing by the day, it's a subsidy. It's a gift. And it gets tiring to hear that all the time. I get it. It's just as tiring to say it. But it's what's kept me sane for a very long time. And, remember, in the race between the turtle and the hare, the turtle won. And last year is a kind of a good example. It's not Tesla that went up sevenfold, but silver was still up 50% for the year and 100% since March. And, it's pretty darn good where I come from. And if you look at this as a marathon, not a sprint, these are gifts along the way to buy on the dips while it's still available. Because you know what? Your brethren in Australia can't get anything from what we're being told. And if that really is the case, then we should consider ourselves to be fortunate. Buying at a subsidy and buying when it's available, because people who have a major, one of the 6 major mints in the world in their backyard evidently can't get it. So think about it that way and look at it as a gift, and one that we should be fortunate that we're able to access it now. Because if that ever shuts off, then what do you do? And now you're trapped inside the matrix. So if this is a bigger agenda, if you're looking to build wealth and put it away for the future and for your family and for whatever comes next, then be thrilled that A, you can get it, and B, that you have an opportunity to buy it at a subsidized price when the fundamentals are growing. And that's really the key here, is that you have to trust your gut. I keep saying that, but it's true. I mean, trust your gut and don't let the misdirection of price throw you off the bull. The bull will take as many people, throw them off, as many people as he can along the way. And the bull wants to have as few people on his back before the thing is all done. And I don't think we're anywhere near done. Then again, I quite frankly, I think this is what it's going to be. It's going to be volatile. You have to have strong fingertips. You have to trust your gut. You have to stay true to your beliefs, and don't buy gold and silver to get wealthy. Buy gold and silver because it is wealth and has been for 5,000 years. And that's the way to look at it. It's wealth and money when everything else is just credit.
Well, speaking of my surprise and delight to find out that we had American Gold Eagles in stock, you have a weekly special to tell us, and I believe it falls right in that category.
Yeah, we have 1,500 backdate gold maples that we bought from a very large estate. These are the things that you have to do. I was told we have to buy it all or can't get any. So, 1,500 gold maple leafs is not cheap. And so we have 1,500 gold maple leafs that we will do at $105 over the price of gold. That's about $100 cheaper than you're going to get for a gold eagle or a gold buffalo, somewhere in that neighborhood anyway. It's maybe the most respected mint in the world, 24 karat gold coins, all in mint condition, assorted dates. They'll be solid tubes. They come 10 to a tube. They'll all be solid dates in a tube, but I don't know exactly what dates they are. They're not 2021, but really, as an aside, anyone who focuses on current year issue, remember in 2020, those were current year issue and now they're backdates. So is it really worth it to buy? I mean, you could say 2020, 2021 are pivotal years, 2020 being the year that we'll all remember, and 2021 in the Eagle program, there's going to be a new design here in July. And, I think it's a waste of time and a waste of money to focus on current year. If you can buy the mint condition gold maple leaf that isn't 2021 and save some money, it's in your best interest. And more importantly, it's available in very large quantities here. So up to 1,500 we have. And I think it's as good of a buy in gold as you will find right now, because everything else is hard to come by and very expensive, quite frankly. And as one of 27 U.S. Mint authorized resellers in the world, I love the American Eagle products. They're just flat out pretty darn expensive right now. You have to think twice about buying silver eagles and gold eagles because they're really expensive. And herein lies the $6 million question. Is this the new reality as more and more people jump on board, or is it not? And this is the same reality I have to face in buying 1,200 gold maple leafs, or in buying 50,000 silver kangaroos, or 40,000 South African Cougar, or whatever it is. We are all, me and everyone out there, are facing the same dilemma. Is this new, or is this going to change? And quite frankly, I don't see it changing, because again, in using Rick Rule as an example, as I often like to do on your show, until we see the level of interest above the level of inflation, where you can actually make money instead of being negative in real terms on fixed income investments, the gold bull has a long way to go, on top of all the other craziness we see. So it's a good product. The price has fallen off since August by 18-20% almost. Heck of a value. And ultimately where we're going, I guess, is anyone's guess. But if I had a gun to my head, I would say it's going to be a whole lot higher. And in that vein, the Canadian maple leaf is as good of a gold product as you will ever find.
Yeah, some of the clients that I have are specifically always looking for Canadian gold maple leafs. They like the 4/9 purity. They like the extremely high definition engraving that's considered almost uncounterfeitable because of the almost holographic level of detail that are in those. And they are 24 karat, so that means they can be stored in Canadian vaults, which the American Eagles can't. So it draws a lot of praise and trust from across the rest of the world.
I'm going to make one last statement, and I don't know how many I have, but I know if I make this announcement on your website, they'll be gone. I do have maybe 80 or 100 pieces of the Call of the Wild gold. I think I have Grizzlies and Cougars, maybe a few Wolves. These are the purest gold coins ever made. They're the 5/9 fine. Call of the Wild, Grizzly, Cougar, and Wolf, 99999. The Canadian Mint is the only mint in the world that can make that pure of a gold coin. They are my favorite gold bullion coins that I have ever sold in 31 years, period. They are the only gold bullion coins that I have ever sold that act like numismatic coins. And right now, they were part of this large estate. Some of them I have. I don't know exactly how many are left. But we do have some of those. And if you're looking to buy gold bullion, and they're not going to be that much more than the maple leafs, actually, believe it or not. Yeah, the Call of the Wild coins right now at $139 over, maybe next to the gold maple leafs in terms of value. DUNAGUN are going to be the best thing out there. In fact, it takes a lot for me to say there are the best bullion coins I've ever sold. As a U.S. Mint authorized reseller, I love the U.S. Mint products, but these Call of the Wild products are special, and they are the only 5/9 fine coins out there. The Mint did make one other series of 5/9 coins, 5/9 maple leafs, but short of that, these are the only other 5/9 fine pure gold coins in the world, and fantastic. And they really, really are sought after around the globe. And each year they came out, they made it for 1 year and then broke the mold. So they're collector's items being sold as bullion items, and they're the purest gold coins in the world. So just wanted to throw that in there because they're special. So if you're looking for gold, that's the way I would go. And that's all I got for you this week, other than to say I love our chats every Tuesday. I look forward to coming back and seeing you next week. And always just a phone call away if something in this ever-changing, rapidly changing world seems to pop up. You just give me a ring and we'll chat about it.
Absolutely. We've been speaking with Andy Schectman, CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, this Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. And guys, don't lose track with us. Stay connected by going to libertyandfinance.com. Over in the left-hand margin, put in your name and email address. Get on your free mailing list. We will contact you and make sure that we get confirmed. And then we'll send you our 3 times a week free email with Andy, all of his interviews and all of our guests and any of the specials that we have, weekly specials from Andy Schectman. Andy, thanks for joining us again here on Liberty and Finance.
Great to see you. And everyone go check out the Alistair McLeod interview from last night. He's as smart as they get. Thanks again, DUNAGUN. You take care.
You too. Take care.
Some people call maple syrup liquid gold, and they think that putting it on pancakes and waffles is an idea that's pure gold. Well, at Miles Franklin, we think a pure gold idea is taking real liquid gold and turning it into real solid gold Canadian maple leaf coins. That's why right now, for a limited time, we're offering the purest gold Canadian maple leaf coins at just $105 US over spot. That's 4 nines of the purest gold there is in a pretty maple leaf design. And at only $105 US over spot, we'd say that's an idea that's pure gold.
Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at KAISER@milesfranklin.com.